Alrighty.
Live.
It's been a while.
Live on demand. Yes.
Feels like it anyway.
Yeah. A couple of weeks.
Yeah.
All right. Let us go 3 and 2 and 1. Blast off. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
And Sean, we are going to be discussing advertising that sells today. We're going to be digging into some Ogilvy, which we've done in the past.
Yes.
But man, this is going to be interesting because we're pulling up some old
house
ads.
Some
old, exactly. And you actually, I sent you a link over, and then I started digging into this link, and then I started finding more links to other ads. So, and then you sent me kind of a swipe file. So we've got a lot of good stuff that we're getting.
And I've also got flipped open the Ogilvy book.
Yes.
And there's a
classic
collection of the house ads, a couple that we'll be talking about. And you can start to see a theme if you look at the at the house ads, like all side by side in the book as well. So
yeah,
I know it's got a pretty funny line in there, which we'll get to as well. But yeah, so we'll dive deep into Ogilvy. Can't really go wrong there. And it's kind of the whole point of the show, isn't it? How to write advertising that sells. It's kind of
that's right. Yeah, I mean,
it's a big part of the show anyway.
If you can't write advertising that sells, you'll be like our friend in the comments who says help the homeless, because you will be homeless if you can't write good advertising. If you intend on making a living as a copywriter, you might be homeless if you can't write advertising that sells.
That is true. Although, theoretically, if you're good at selling, you could churn through clients and probably make a living. But
sure,
you just won't get any repeat business. That's
right.
Sure.
That's right.
But hey, if you can sell talking, you can sell writing. You just have to.
That's right.
Right, like you talk.
That's right. I interviewed a guy today on one of my industry podcasts who basically wrote his first book by just talking into a recorder, and I thought, man, that's so cool. We talk about that a lot, repurposing content, but he's like, I got this idea for a book, 20 years ago, and just clicked on the recorder, started talking into it. And after a few hours, I had a book. So,
yeah, I mean, if you listen to Audible books, right, they're approximately 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So if you took, an hour walk per day for a week, already had your chapters outlined, you could almost write a book and just
absolutely
walking 3 to 5 miles a day, depending on how fast you walk.
Yeah,
probably what I should do. So, all right, well, let's man, like I said, it's been a while. You've been traveling, I've been traveling, so we're back in the studios.
You were up in the Windy City last week, right?
I was. First time there. Very nice. We were right on Michigan Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago's like home to a lot of famous old copywriters. Like that's where like direct response was bigger in Chicago than it was New York back in the 20s, 1920s.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like trying to breathe in some of that air while I was up there. But yeah, it was pretty cool. First time I've been there. Weather was perfect, but as with most business trips, like we were in the hotel most of the time. Like barely.
You were on the safer side of Chi-Town.
I was right by the river or the lake, all that stuff. So, but I did like sneak out to see the big bean or the cloud sculpture thing. The big aluminum shiny thing. A lot bigger than it looks on TV, and I think it's much bigger than I thought it was. So, but yeah, let's dive into some beers.
Okay,
I'm curious. You said you had one of our favorite brands.
Yeah, I picked this up earlier this week from my favorite little establishment, and it is a Founders Edition. It is called a Bottle Shop, the Founders Bottle Shop.
Okay.
So this is a 4-pack and special edition. So I'm going to read their
$32.99 for the
Yeah, pretty much. Might as well be. I'm going to read there actually the press release they put out on this beer because it was back in, I guess, April. So it says Founders Brewing has announced a new bottle shop series with the return of Nemesis. The barley wine style ale is brewed with roasted malts and let's see. Oh, I just lost. Oh, and no shortage of hops for a pleasantly bitter, booming flavor with the ABV of 11.2%.
Wow.
Nemesis pours with a slight and subtle mahogany hue and multiple flavors that melt on your tongue. This one Nemesis you'll feel good about keeping around. It was first introduced back in 2010, and I guess they shelved it for a while, and then brought it back. So it says it's a tribute to the folks who support ragtag brewers across the country when craft beer was in its infancy, when beer enthusiasts sought out innovation through big flavor, in-your-face complexity, and revered quality above all else. Now they've sold out all of them. So, so it's kind of a tribute to the day when that was so important. Now all these, well, I shouldn't say all of them, but so many of these microbreweries are owned by big brands. So yeah. It's cool though. I like that, a little tribute to the past days.
Yeah, so. Sounds good. I mean, it doesn't actually sound good. I'm curious how it.
Yeah.
But it's a great name. I love the name Nemesis. That's a cool name.
Absolutely.
So while you're pouring over there,
all right,
let's check this out. I have got Viva la Beaver.
Ooh.
From Belching Beaver Brewery.
Belching Beaver. All right.
So this is a Mexican chocolate peanut butter stout.
Oh, wow.
So
a Mexican, let's digest that. Mexican chocolate. And then you throw in
Mexican
peanut butter.
chocolate usually has that little bit of spice to it.
Mm-hmm.
So Viva la Beaver is loaded with notes of creamy peanut butter, cinnamon, and coffee.
Right.
This decadent milk stout is the perfect dessert beer to finish off your meal and is our highest rated beer, receiving numerous gold and silver medals. Sink your teeth into this liquid chocolate treat. 7.5% alcohol, 28 IBUs. It was 2019. It was first in Japan's Brewer Cup. 2019 Gold, the Craft Brewers Cup. 2018 Gold. 2016 Gold Unique Ingredient Beer. And California State Fair Commercial Craft Brew Competition 2016 second place. What a bunch of losers.
Yeah, right.
Second place.
If you ain't first, you're last, man. According to what's our friend from Talladega Nights?
Ricky Bobby.
Ricky Bobby.
You ain't first, you're last. All right. So I'm looking forward to
I find it a little interesting, a Mexican stout. You don't usually, those two things don't usually come to mind together because you don't think Mexican stout.
Yeah. Well, that's why they threw the chocolate and peanut butter in, I guess. I don't know. It's like a Mexican Reese's cup, I guess. So,
all right.
All right.
Well, here's my pour. Ooh.
Yeah.
Both of these are dark.
Yeah, very dark.
All right.
Clink.
Oh man, that's really good.
I don't know if they should have told me it was gold medal winning because now I have high expectations. It actually reminds me of a quote from about the ads we're going to talk about today. I was looking at Ogilvy's book and he said, "Watch out. Your clients will read your house advertisements. If you boast about your genius for brilliant ideas, you run the risk that they will ask you why you don't give them brilliant ideas." So I feel like sometimes when you say you're a 5-time gold medal winner, maybe you set the bar be careful. You might set the bar a little too high, but actually it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And we know for a fact these age better over the 20, 30 minutes. So, but it's already pretty good. You can definitely taste the cinnamon's not as strong as I thought, which is good. Definitely got the creamy, got the peanut butter. Yeah, I mean, I can taste all the things: the cinnamon, the coffee, the peanut butter, the stout. So it's good.
All right. So what do you give it?
I'm gonna give it a 4. Like, it's not amazing, but it's good.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give it a solid 4.
Solid 4. Yep. All right.
How about you?
Man, this is good. So I'm gonna throw a 4. I'm gonna throw a 4.8 on this one.
Nice.
This is really solid.
So obviously it's not the bitterness for you, it's something else.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, because they said this would be.
Yeah, they said it was really bitter.
Yeah, they said it was bitter, but I don't taste any bitterness at all. It's it's a good balance.
I think it's the floral and like the pine and that kind of stuff that you and I don't like about IPAs.
Yeah.
You know, that when it tastes like a pine tree, we're not big fans for sure. So.
Yeah. This is there. I mean, there's no. I don't get that description because I don't taste any. No, I don't taste any hoppiness at all. So,
and they were really bragging about the hops, so that's kind of weird. All right, so quick question before we go on to our show. This is kind of out of character, but so I'm sitting here eating M&Ms, waiting for the show. You know, before you came on. Do you line up your M&Ms by color and quantity before eating your M&Ms, or is that just me?
That is you, brother. That is you.
All right.
You know how I eat M&Ms?
Just pour. Chug. You funnel them. You use a funnel.
Okay. So I'm not a caveman, but I do just pour them, I'll throw them in my hand and just.
I mean, I would funnel them if I could. If I had a beer funnel with M&Ms, I would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
now, are these regular or peanut M&Ms?
Just regular M&Ms, yeah.
Okay.
So
I mostly hit the peanut M&Ms. I'm not a big just regular M&M guy, but I love peanut. I always go, if I go to M&Ms, I always go to the peanut M&Ms.
Yeah. Well, these are actually, we had snacks one day at the event that I was at in Chicago.
Okay.
It was a small group. It was only like 6 of us. So they ordered, the mandatory afternoon snack tray from the hotel that cost $5,000 or whatever it costs. I was like, if nobody's taking those, I'm taking those home, because there was a plate full of M&Ms and Snickers and Lemonheads. I was like,
that's going in my bag.
If they're charging for them, I hate to see these go back and they charge again for the same stuff. So I'm taking them.
Sure.
So I've been snacking on M&Ms.
Oh, okay.
Lemonheads and Snickers bars.
Oh, man.
But anyway,
that's a go-to if I'm traveling. If I stop, if I stop at a gas station and fill up, then it's either a bag of peanut M&Ms or maybe occasional Cliff Bar, or a Kind Bar or something like that. But like if I'm feeling really crazy, I'll go to the peanut M&Ms.
Yeah, I love it. All right, well, let's break open these Ogilvy ads and see. So we're going to start with kind of I think what's the most general, and then there's a lot of spin-offs, I think, that happen from this one. And it's pretty interesting to think about. And to set the context, you could certainly do this where it's ads, but you could also use these today as blog posts. There was no such thing as a blog when these were written. So for those of you who are not online watching this, these typically ran as newspaper, almost like a newspaper article. They would buy an entire, page of a newspaper, or half or a third, or a magazine or whatever page, and it's set up to pretty much look like a 4-column article. And that's where they would run it, especially in magazines, and definitely some newspapers.
Which makes sense because the print looks like it fits right into a newspaper. I mean, it's like that,
it's
we
more
talk about that advertorial look. So you feel like you're actually reading an article.
Right. The header at the top, the first paragraph that has kind of it's not like a true advertorial where it has like city and state and some of that stuff that, people do to make it look like an ad, but it's definitely that format. But you could easily turn this into a series, what they've done into a series of blog posts. You could even do, these would make great like Facebook Lives or YouTube videos if you broke out the points one by one. And
easily.
So there's lots of ways that if they were doing this today, and it'd be interesting. We should have done our research, I guess, but we could have looked and see what Ogilvy does today for advertising, but their own stuff, I'm sure they do.
Well, it's interesting. I was reading like at the beginning of this, and we'll post the links on to this because you can find this this article with a lot of the links and kind of the breakdown over at a link over at copywritingcourse.com. So give them full credit for laying this out and putting some of the links to these ads in there. But it's interesting to see that it says Ogilvy and Mather has created over 1,480,000,000 worth of advertising and spent only 4,900,000 tracking the results. So,
and that was 40 years, 50 years ago, whenever this ran. So
good return.
They've done a lot more than
I'm sure.
Now, so we're not going to go through. I love the opening sentence. It's like, here with all the dogmatism of brevity are 38 of the things we have learned. Let's just go.
So much for.
You notice it doesn't end with a 7 or 9. Right. It's like 38. That's
38.
I didn't even know that was legal in copy, that you could end an even number. I wasn't. But it'd be 3, 5, 7, 9.
That's right.
Other than 10. 10's an anomaly, but 38. That's bold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So right out of the gate that they're not messing around. They're like, no, we're 38.
Right.
We weren't going to settle for 37. 38.
There you go.
And they fit it all onto one page.
I know.
Pretty amazing.
It is. It is.
So because of that, let me ask you, do you think this is short copy or long copy?
I think it's, I would consider this more shorter copy.
It's pretty dense when you look at it.
It is. And the fact that you can get it on one page, but I guess if you were to break this down onto, an 8.5 by 11 typical sales letter, I don't know exactly how many pages this would produce, but it would be decent. It'd be a decent size.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably 8 or 9 point font. It's pretty small stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's very reminiscent of magazines, and they did a lot of ads in magazines. That was kind of their thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like 38 blurbs that you would see on the cover of a magazine or things like that, or any one of these could be a sidebar, or it could be a lot of different things. So, but then they did break it down. So they got the 38 pieces, and then they've got kind of an overall, then what works best in television, what works best in print.
Mm-hmm.
So they've really got like 3 different sections going on.
Right.
Just in this one ad. So,
mm-hmm.
But I love, and I do this in a lot of my copy. I love anything that's numbered.
Oh yeah, I do too.
An ad. Mm-hmm. I think it keeps people reading.
Yes. Yeah. Either numbers or bullets keep me reading to the next one. So, but numbers, I like the numbers because it keeps it, and you feel like it's kind of a sequential order. So you're going from one to the next. So
and if you read 1, you know that there's a number 2 somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So you just keep reading to get to number 2, and then there's probably a number 3. And so a lot of times in like main sections of my copy, I'll have an intro section that says, 5 things or 3 things or whatever. And you see a lot of webinars do this with this format. So then your brain kind of knows where it's going.
Yeah.
So there's some relief there.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, with this, so your brain's like, okay, there's 38 things he's going to talk about. So there's some finality there. Like, okay, it's just 38 things, or it's, oh my God, it's 38 things. Either way, your brain knows what it's dealing with.
Sure.
But it also at the same time creates 38 open loops.
Yes.
Because you don't know which of the 38 things you might need for your business.
Right.
So you got to go through all of them.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's what I love about like doing numbered sequences in copy is that people don't know which one they need, and they kind of know that they're there, and it creates this open loop in a different way than just like a cliffhanger.
Absolutely. What I like too about it is not only does it break it down in numbers, but he also breaks it down from a sectional from what works best in television. So he's got these sub headlines. If you look at the ad, what works best in television, what works best in print. So if you're strictly focused on copywriting in print, then you just skip straight to straight to those, I guess starting at 25, which in this ad is point 25, which starts with a headline. So that's you go right to that, and so it's organized really well. Depending on what what type of platform you want to use for your advertising your message.
Yeah. Well, let's look at, and then the first section, which is interesting because the first section doesn't really have a title. And it is more general, and I'm surprised actually they didn't put a title.
Yeah, me too.
On that one, like what works best,
right,
in general or overall, or something like that. I don't wouldn't be the right words, but I thought number one, which is titled "The Most Important Decision," which is a great
captures
place
your attention.
Yeah, which is kind of a good place to start. I thought, I mean, I've heard this before, but then as I read it, I was like, yes, that is so easy to forget. So here's what it says. This is we have learned that the effect of your advertising on your sales depends more on this decision than any other. How should you position your product?
Right.
Okay. So then he gives two examples real quick that I think are important for anyone that has any kind of product to pay attention to.
Sure.
Should you position Schweppes as a soft drink or as a mixer? So Schweppes, I think, was what? Is that ginger ale?
I don't even know what Schweppes was.
I think it was ginger ale.
Okay. All right. It makes sense.
Yeah. So is ginger ale a soft drink or is it a mixer?
Sure.
And depending on how you sell that, what choice you make there. And you may, by the way, you may do both, but not in the same ad.
Right.
So it's just like Coke. Is Coke a soft drink or is it a mixer? Like if you're in the right publications, you may want to bill Coke as the best mixer for rum and whiskey and bourbon and all these other things that Coke goes with.
Yeah.
Right. So it really depends on where you're going to end up and what part of the market you're trying to get.
Absolutely.
His other example was, should you position Dove as a product for dry skin or as a product which gets hands really clean? Like you don't, if you own the product, it can be really easy to overlook that kind of subtlety and that kind of nuance that like, well, it's for getting dry hands clean is probably what most people would say because we want to reach everybody.
Yeah.
And I struggle with this all the time, like niching down and all this kind of stuff. But it's important to make that distinction and write two different ads.
Yes.
If you want to do both, you got to do it two different ads, right? So if it's going to get your hands really clean, that would probably go in, Popular Mechanics magazine or on, the Art of Manliness website as an ad. Yeah. Whereas if you're going on Oprah or the, HGTV, maybe it's for dry skin,
Absolutely.
So
yeah, you could even home and gardening, if you're, or somebody that's, loves gardening where they're digging in the dirt, and you got to get the, the clean hands. And, but it's like you said, you can tackle both areas, but you just can't do it at the same time because you have to occupy the space of your reader's mind who is, and focus in on what they're most interested in. Some people,
you got to lead with that one big idea.
Yep.
Which is kind of the second point in this ad, which is a large promise.
Absolutely.
So, so if you think about Dove again, so is it are you promising that they'll still have soft skin and not be, dry
Sure.
after washing their hands? Or are you just promising their hands will get really clean?
Absolutely.
It's a little different than positioning, but it's kind of in the same arena there. And obviously positioning informs whatever your promise is going to be.
Right. Yeah. I have no doubt that Dove has multiple, just to give an example, Dove or a lot of these products, they do multiple campaigns for different market segments.
Yeah.
You just can't tackle, all of those in the same ad. You got to be
Dove
focused.
has definitely gone more towards the soft, the pure, and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
If you want hands really clean, you go get a lava bar or or what was that? What's that stuff they used to use in shops, like the orange gel stuff that had like the grit in it?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That stuff was awesome. I can't remember what it's called, but that stuff, I remember growing up, I was in a small town we were in, and
I know.
Every shop had that stuff in it.
Usually in every, like when I go into manufacturing plants, they'll have a dispenser with that stuff on there. And I can't remember it, but you're right. It's got that gritty, it's made for industrial use where you can get the grime off your hands.
Very manly.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Somebody needs to make that for men's sinks in their bathroom.
Yes.
And a pump.
Absolutely.
Because there's something about that, man. It's like, it's like you almost feel like you're getting your hands dirtier, but they're actually getting clean.
Oh man, you feel just that scrubbing action going on. It makes you feel it may not be doing anything, but it feels good. It feels like you're getting some work done.
It does. Yeah. I have to look into that. That'd be a good product. So what was we're not going to go through all 38 of these. So what was some of your biggest takeaways on this one? Then we'll jump into some of the offshoot ads from this.
Okay. So we're not going to go through, obviously we're not going to go through all of these. So, we'll just kind of skip to some of the most important, psychological segmentation. A good agency knows how to position products for demographic segments. And this is obvious, but you want, for your market, for men, for young children, for farmers, et cetera, like we've just been, talking about, he mentions Mercedes advertising is positioned to fit nonconformists who scoff at status symbols or reject flim-flam appeals to snobbery. So,
I had this conversation at the event I was at last week, and I was like, it's demographics is easy, which is what he said. Like, you can find those filters on Facebook ads or anything else, but where you really get the most bang for your buck in advertising is understanding the psychographics and finding out where those people are hanging out.
Absolutely.
Psychographically.
And even in niche markets, you can segment that. I mean, like for instance, golfers, not every golfer is the same. You've got your scratch golfers, and then you've got your 18 handicap golfers, and so those are golfers that are looking for two different things, right?
Yeah. And golfers who do mostly play golf for business.
Yeah.
And golfers who play as a stress relief.
Right.
Those are very different reasons for getting on the golf course and very different reasons to have a good score on the golf course.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, if I'm doing it for business, I don't want to make a fool out of myself. I'm probably a little bit more concerned about score than if I'm just going to blow off steam. Right.
Right. Yep.
So knowing that difference as opposed to 40-year-old men who live, wherever, like that's just not enough to really find out what's driving this person to play golf and purchase golf equipment.
Yep. Absolutely. Anything for you, and then I'll pull up another one.
I'm just scanning some of these. I think this one's pretty important. Number 27, news and headlines. Time after time, we have found that it pays to inject genuine news into the headlines.
Yes.
The consumer is always on the lookout for new products or new improvements in an old product or new ways to use an old product. Economists, even Russian economists, approve of this. They call it informative advertising, and so do consumers. So anytime you modify your product add a module if it's an information course. You should be billing that as new and improved. And you see this, the big companies do this all the time, right? Like they put a new lid on a jar of peanut butter and they're like, new easy open lid.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, they are not shy about it.
Yeah.
They like let you know why that is so much better and how it's going to change your life, basically. So I think that's something that a lot of us are too modest with.
Sure.
And then also, of course, tying that to news events. But in this case, I think he's talking more about actual product news.
Right.
Toilet paper does this all the time. Toothpaste does this all the time. You know, and there are ways to do it with information products, with any other product. Cars do it all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big one that I think a lot of people don't take advantage of.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, where are we going next?
I found this interesting. Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead to 35. If photographs versus artwork. And I would be curious if this is still true today, because I'm not sure exactly what, when this article or when this ad came out. But it says I'm sure it probably is true today, but has found photographs work better than drawings almost invariably. They attract readers, generate more appetite appeal, and are more believable, are better remembered. So, using illustrations or other types of artistic artwork versus photographs in any advertising, you want to use, actual photographs first if you're, using that within your copy.
That would be an interesting test. And the reason I say that is because I think it would obviously depend. Is it a sales email? Is it an ad? Is it a blog? Like all those kind of things. But assuming sales and an actual advertisement, I could also see where a really good infographic could do well.
Oh, I know.
So I'd be curious, like a photograph versus an infographic with the same copy around it.
Absolutely.
Which would pull better.
Now, to preface this, I'm going to back up a little where he talks about, I think it's in 33, where he talks about story appeal in picture, which this maybe sets the stage as to why photographs sometimes work better. But he says he's got notable results with photographs which suggest a story. The reader glances at a photograph and asks himself, what's going on here? Then he reads the copy to find out. So sometimes images can create the curiosity effect, depending on the image that you use. I mean, I guess it could be done in illustrations, but I think more often than not, color images that are really interesting, that are, really capture our attention, can kind of draw us into the story or into the copy.
Well, I've got no definitive proof on a couple of things. I got a couple of different things to talk about on this. So
yeah,
one thing that comes up is one of the most famous ads of all time. They laughed.
Oh yeah.
Is a drawing. Now that was written in the 20s. So photographs were not big, especially for print. They probably would have been very grainy. So a drawing is probably more clear than a photograph back then. But even as I was thinking about that, Ted Nicholas had a promo. It was like you, a professional speaker or something like that. You remember that one?
Yep.
And there's a picture of like a microphone in front of a crowd as part of the header.
Yep.
And that was an image. And that's the same thing. It kind of tells a story. There's a microphone, there's a crowd of people, instantly tells a story.
Yep.
So that's two of those two things. And then the other thing I thought of, I did a test earlier this year when I was with the agency, and we tested black and white versus color. And black and white images on Facebook did better with 4 or 5 different clients than color. But I think the reason for that is because everybody had color. We were the only ones running black and white, or one of the very few. And I just noticed that because there was one company doing black and white photos in my feed, and it always stuck out to me because it was different.
Yeah.
So I think it was more the difference than it was black and white is better than color. Mm-hmm. But head to head, we ran the same picture with color and black and one grayscale. Grayscale worked better. And then we did grayscale with like color highlight, like a banner or a border. And that did better than either of the two.
Sure.
So it's pretty cool. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. Very.
But yeah, and it's funny, this too, because I just read a whole article on email from, I can't remember who did it, but MailChimp did a huge study, like 5 billion emails. And they found that emails without pictures did better than emails with pictures.
Yeah.
Unless you had over, and this was wild, unless you had like over 20 pictures, like an e-commerce catalog type ad.
Okay.
But if it was 1 to 10 pictures, no pictures beat it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. That's
no pictures as opposed to too many, right?
Or anywhere from 1 to 10. If it had 1 to 10 pictures, no pictures beat it. Okay. As far as click-through rate.
Okay.
So just plain text hyperlink beat images if there was 1 to 10 images. Now, once you got up into 20 images or more, then the images took back over, which I actually would have thought it was the opposite, but
I would too. That's why I just asked, because I thought you maybe meant the fewer the images, the more people were drawn to the ads with the images. But no,
it's the opposite. Yeah, it's weird. I would not expect it. So I'm doing a test right now for one of the companies I'm working with, where we're testing that theory with our list to see if it holds true. So I'm excited to see how that's going to be about a 6-week test. So we'll find out how that does.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about headlines. How many words in a headline? So it says, this is number 29. It says, in headline test conducted with the cooperation of a big department store, it was found that headlines of 10 words or longer sold more goods than shorter headlines. In terms of recall, headlines between 8 and 10 words are most effective. In mail order advertising, however, headlines between 6 and 12 words get the most coupon returns. We're dating a little bit there when we talk about mail order advertising and coupons.
Yeah, that's when you guys for our youngsters out there. That means you literally had to get a pair of scissors and cut out and fill out.
Right.
You think it's hard to get somebody to enter their credit card online?
Yeah.
Imagine having to get somebody to find a pair of scissors, cut it out, fill in the information, stick it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and mail it off.
Man, you know what? I gladly, as a kid reading comic books, I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you were ever a comic book reader, Sean, but
I was not.
I remember.
I did read Mad. I read Mad magazine.
Okay, all right.
About it.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't read Mad, but they probably had similar advertisements in Mad magazine. But they, you can send off for the.
Well, cereal boxes had that.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Pull off part of the cereal box and mail it in. Yeah,
that's right. You mail in for the sea monkeys and you know the
Daisy Red Ryder BB gun.
That's right. So you were all about tearing that, along the little, the dashed line. You cut that out or tore it out and send it in.
And there's something about that though that's like the physicality of it.
Absolutely.
Just like writing by hand and a lot of things we've lost.
Yeah.
That I've often wondered, like, how can you make online advertising a little bit more interactive like that? Because another thing people do, and they still do this, like when you get direct mail, sometimes there's stickers that you have to pull off and you put yes on the order form before you mail it back in. And what that is they found that increased response because it's a micro commitment. We've talked about getting people to say yes. So when somebody peels a yes sticker off and sticks it on, it's a micro commitment that they're ordering and it goes forward.
Sure.
So I would love to see more tests on interactive copy on websites where people have to check more boxes in a sales letter, these types of things where they're they're taking physical action instead of just scrolling, where they have to interact a little bit more. And I've seen this every once in a while, but I think it's something we could all be testing more often.
Absolutely. It says, here's what's interesting. On average, long headlines, here's the takeaway. On average, long headlines sell more merchandise than shorter ones. And he uses the example that we've talked about in the past on the Rolls Royce. Remember, at 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise in this new Rolls Royce is from the electric clock. I mean, that's pretty good.
Man, that's hard to believe, but I think John Carlton took that to heart.
Yeah,
he really, his Dan Kennedy, same way. And it's funny,
by the way, I just got to say, you mentioned John Carlton. I bought I bought his best ads. Oh man, I'm loving that.
Well, there's a lot of golf in there, right?
Exactly. There's a lot of good golf ads.
He was big in golf, martial arts. A lot of those niches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the dollar, like the dollar bill, ad that he did was like really good.
Yeah. Which is also a Halbert ad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. I'm kind of fighting this where I'm at right now. Working with a client, this long versus short copy thing. And we just did a page that we're going to retest some stuff to see if it holds true. But like the long copy crushed shorter copy, just crushed it. Now, there's some other things we're questioning, like, was it the experience? Was it the copy? What's going on? Because the copy is obviously different on a short and a long page. So we're retesting to try to nail that down. But at first glance, it looks like long copy definitely won, at least on a sales page. We're testing the same thing in emails to see if longer versus shorter works in emails. But it's been quite interesting because traditionally the company has been very big on short copy.
Okay.
So I'm coming in and shaking things up a little bit, and not everybody loves it, but
test. Yeah.
Test. I mean, I'm open to being wrong about it for sure, but it just seems like since I've been doing copywriting, copy just gets longer and longer.
Yeah.
With the exception of maybe e-commerce ads, e-commerce, but even that's starting to get long again. It used to be very just tight product descriptions, and now they're starting to have these longer pages with more proof and more stuff. And there's a company called Umzu that does probiotics and other supplements and things like that, and they have some great advertising. And their advertising is longer, more informative kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Which he says, looking at point 32, yes, people do read long copy. He said, but it's interesting. He says readership falls off rapidly after or up to 50 words, but drops very little between 50 and 500 words. Ogilvy and Mather has used long copy with notable success for Mercedes, Cessna, Merrill Lynch. I mean, those are some pretty nice brands to work with. Shell gasoline.
Yeah, it's interesting. He says there that this page is 1,909 words.
Yeah. And here we are talking about, several
50 years later. Well, I mean, I remember Clayton Makepeace saying that when they used to do just direct mail before they went online, that if they had a winner that was at 10 pages, if they would take it to 12, assuming the same quality of copy, right?
Yeah,
not just longer to be longer, but assuming the same, editing, same, attention to detail for 12 pages that you had for 10, 12 would always outpull 10.
Sure.
And then the next bracket up, it went to like 16 or 18, that one, and then 20, 24 one. And and we still see especially in the information space that, 25 pages, sometimes 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh yeah.
If you think about most webinars that sell well, they're an hour plus, which if you were to write those out, I have found that it's about a page a minute of talking. So if it's a 45-minute presentation, it's like, 40 pages of copy.
Okay. Yeah.
Loose copy, not like dense like what we're looking at here, but
Sure.
lots of white space, things like that. But if you were to put that in a transcript, it would be a lot of pages of copy. Mm-hmm. So it just, I mean, anecdotally and hard data suggests that if it's good quality copy, longer beats shorter.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole key is to keep people engaged. I mean, that's the trick. If it's still engaging and interesting, they'll keep reading. But
and if you're really trying to sell something that's, either brand new to somebody so they don't know and trust you, even if it's a lower priced, you got to give them a lot of information to make them feel safe to pull out their credit card and stick it in a website online.
Yeah.
Right. And if it's a bigger price, then it's just a bigger price, and people need more information to make that choice. Yeah. Especially on acquisition. It changes a little bit on the back end. If they're comfortable with you, they know your company, and you offer a expensive service.
Right.
I mean, you don't need as much copy, but even then, long copy tends to do a little bit better.
Yeah. And it really depends on what your goal is. If you're selling initially, it's like I've always heard Bob Bly say, obviously the higher like you were saying, the more expensive the product, if you're selling, RVs or log cabins, obviously, those are more expensive products. So your copy is going to be a little bit longer. However, if you're selling a free report, or not necessarily selling, but giving away a free report on the advantages of, living the mobile lifestyle in an RV or something like that, that you're, creating maybe a free product to give away, that educates people on, why you should own an RV and travel the world or something like that, that does a lot of the selling itself. Maybe your copy doesn't need to be as long. Yeah. Maybe a lot of that selling's done in your info product that's given away to them, with maybe a 1-page,
Yeah. If you're giving away a good free report, good title, all that stuff.
Right.
Then a landing page can be pretty quick because it's going to be mostly curiosity driven.
Sure.
And you're going to let the curiosity pull them to get the report because there's no other cost. It's just a time cost.
Right.
And a giving up your email cost.
Yep.
But there's no money exchanged. There's no financial.
There's no risk involved. So you don't have to be lengthy.
Yeah. So if you can just be super, but you can't I won't say that. I was about to say you can't charge something and just do it on curiosity, but that's actually what Agora does all the time. Like they're like,
right.
I guess that's what everybody does. Really. It's like, you get these promises and it builds up this curiosity. Will that really work? You got to try it. So I guess there is a little bit of curiosity in that, but Agora, I know that's their model. Like they tell you all about this free report you're going to get when you subscribe for $47 a year, whatever.
Yeah.
And that curiosity to get that free report is pretty strong.
Sure.
Because you want to know what's in it. You want to know the name of that one company that's going to give you a 5x return in the next 16 hours.
Yep.
So
exactly.
So yeah, curiosity works for sure, but it still takes a lot of copy to get somebody to fork over $47. That's a stranger.
Oh, absolutely.
It just does.
Yeah. And a lot of that's done in, may not be long copy today. It may be a longer video,
it could be a podcast.
To your sales page. Right.
It could be somebody's been listening to your podcast for a year or 2 years. But if you think about that, that's a lot of copy. Like it's really about, I heard somebody say one time that per $1,000, you need about an hour of somebody's time invested.
Yeah.
And I think that may be low today because skepticism keeps going up. You probably need 2 to 3 hours per 1,000, where people have invested in listening to you, getting familiar with you, all that kind of stuff.
Right. I know talking about the, what comes to mind is Grant Cardone. I know the 10X guy. So he's got
10X baby.
10X baby. So he does an ad on XM radio called, it's for obviously for companies that want to improve their sales training, but it's called Tired of Missing Sales, tiredofmissingsales.com. So he's really good at that. Like, asking all the questions, like the hot buttons, and then directing them to that website. But if you go to the landing page, obviously, like we've talked about, it's good. The copy's good, but it's not lengthy copy, but the video sums it up right there. And then you get the free, obviously the free ebook or the free report.
That's such a big pain point too. That's the other thing. The bigger the pain,
yes,
a lot of times the less copy you need as well. If the pain is very clear and the solution is very clear, you can sometimes go less on copy.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to say, like, wanting a winning stock is a big pain point. Like, everybody wants to make up lost time in their retirement, those kind of things. Right. But which stock is where the resistance is, and why the copy has to be longer in a lot of those promotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So same thing with sales. Like, everybody needs more sales. Everybody knows they're missing sales.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty easy sell right there in itself. But what's the method, and why should I trust you? That's where the copy has to earn its keep.
Yep.
But if you hear a guy on XM radio, there's some built-in credibility there because the platform, and it's like, oh, this guy can afford to advertise on the radio. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's built into that works.
Yeah. And his headline, if you go to that page, his headline, "Stop wasting time chasing the perfect hire. Allow us to build your next top sales producer," right? So who's he targeting? He's targeting to companies that are
sales managers.
Right, exactly. Sales managers are like frustrated. They can't find a good producer out there, and they're looking for the right guy.
When I was 30, I think 28 or 29, somewhere in there, I was working for a company selling financial products, and I was in Texas, and then they sent me to Georgia to run the Georgia office at 29 years old. And I was hiring these guys coming in that were like 40, 50, in the kind of insurance niche,
right?
Annuities. And man, I was interviewing 8 or 10 people, not 8 or 10 people a day, probably 3 or 4 people a day, in addition to running the current team, because the turnover was high. Like, it was exhausting. So if I saw that ad at that time, absolutely, I would have jumped all over. I told my company, we need this guy to come in and train our guys, because these guys suck.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm tired of hiring people that suck.
Absolutely.
Great salespeople typically, aren't out looking for jobs. They're good.
No.
They're not, unless something crazy happens.
Right.
So if somebody's answering an ad for sales, they probably have a reason for it.
Yeah. Right.
So
typically, like, really good salespeople, they are found, and it typically, like in my industry, it's, you work through recruiters, so you get in touch with a recruiter, and you're not out there sending out resumes to companies.
You're not posting on Monster or Indeed or.
No, exactly. It's like you connect with a recruiter, you talk to him, and he knows your background, and he's so he's out there selling to the right company for you. So,
well, let's switch gears a little bit and move from this ad. I think this was one of the original house ads they did, but they had a whole series of these that they did. And like I said, I found in the book Ogilvy on Advertising on page 65. Here's 6 different ads that kind of, I'm guessing, just kind of spun off of that.
So we're going to talk about how to launch how to launch new products, because that's
how to launch new products. Yeah, that's one I sent you for the show. But then check out some of these other titles. You can see that they probably got results from how to create advertising that sells. So then they started niching, and they created how to create corporate advertising that gets results, how to launch new products, how to make your sales promotions more profitable, how much should you spend on advertising, how to advertise travel, how to create food advertising that sells. So you can see that depending on the niche that they wanted to go after, they created a new ad specifically for that niche.
Oh, yeah.
So if I was wanting to land cologne companies or, perfume companies or fragrance, I guess is what they'd be called, I would say how to create fragrance advertising that sells or whatever their term is in the industry.
Yeah.
But this one I thought was pretty interesting, how to launch new products.
Yeah.
It immediately made me think of my buddy Ryan, who helps people launch new products. I actually sent this to him today. Like, man, you could reuse this because this is
right.
Like, this is still timely because, the whole Amazon crowd, people wanting to launch products on Amazon, all these kind of things.
Yeah. I mean, what's impressive to me is like in this ad is the proof where they say, Ogilvy and Mather, they helped launch 73 new products. 45 are now established brands. So double the rate of success. So that's a nice little sub headline into
that's pretty strong sub headline right there
into how to launch products. So they're basically backing it up right there with that sub headline.
Unless you're one of the 30 others that didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you're like, yeah, whatever. After you fired them,
screw you.
But that, having been in this business for a little while, like that's a 50%, over 50% success rate,
right?
Which in marketing is that's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
I mean, I remember my copy chiefs would say, like, if you can get 1 out of 3 to be a base hit, that's Hall of Fame stuff in baseball, and it's Hall of Fame stuff in copywriting as well. It's like, you bat 300 just to get on base, and then every once in a while you'll have a home run. 1 out of 10, 1 out of 15, whatever.
Right.
But if you can just get on base 1 out of 3 times, you can have a very good career and build some nice businesses.
Yep.
So the interesting thing about this one, it has it's a different number structure, but it does have 5 sections to it.
Yeah. These are Roman numeral.
Which makes all the difference.
Absolutely.
Roman numerals, right?
That's a game changer right there.
Yeah. Most people don't talk about that. I mean, that's inside knowledge, but yeah, the Roman numerals, all the difference in the world. So if you're using typical keyboard numbers, you should be using Roman numerals.
It's called split testing. Try it.
Yeah. Split test. Yeah. What are regular numbers called? If there's Roman numerals, what are regular numbers called? Do you know?
Numerical numbers?
I don't know.
I think that's numerical numbers. I don't know. That's just repetitive, I think.
Yeah. I may have to. That's some good around the dinner table knowledge right there.
That's right.
That's a good bar bet right there too.
I tell you, from a person that's just looking outside, if I were just examining both of these, I would say that the Roman numerals capture my attention more.
Well, I agree, but they're set off as their own subhead, not just the beginning of a paragraph.
That's right. Yep.
So I think that's why they stand out a little bit more.
Yep.
But yeah, there's definitely something about
and it could be the more that you go, like we highlighted 38 previously.
Yeah.
You can't do that with Roman numerals because you just get
they get pretty long. Yeah.
At some point, it gets way too long and convoluted. So
yeah, that's the weird thing about, there's a pretty clear, how much space typical numbers are going to take up. Roman numerals, man, they get really long and they go back short all of a sudden, and it's crazy. I'm sure it's a designer's nightmare.
That's right.
So
that's right.
So they break down by the product, the package, the name, the price, the advertising, which pretty much sounds like everything that somebody launching a product would want to know.
Yep.
The package, I think, is probably something not everybody would need, depending on the product, but it's still there. And then what's interesting, they give examples of their ads that they did, which is incredible proof when you're basically selling that you can do this for people. Because even though it's informative and you're telling people kind of what you learned and how they could do this, you're really wanting people to hire you to do it.
Absolutely.
Right? This is a done for you service.
Right.
So this is a good ad for people to look at if they also have a done for you service or even done with you. I think it's a good way to go.
Absolutely.
Anything here that like really jumped out to you?
The name, part 3 of this, a good name can reinforce your advertising. If you give your brand meaning on the shelf, your product is less likely to get into trouble if you follow these guidelines. And here they are. Choose a name, choose a name that will help position your brand, like Swanson's New Hungry Man Dinners, right?
Yeah.
I remember those back in the day.
Yes. Back when they were like tinfoil and not microwave.
Those were the days. TV trays and tinfoil dinners. I mean,
Man.
come on. Let's see. Put your product promise in the name, like Shell, No Pest Strip, Roast and Boast, Sears.
No
I mean, we're dating these.
Oh,
Some of
yeah.
these. Roast and Boast, Sears Power Mate vacuum cleaners, and Sears Dial Easy sewing machine. So,
Well, I think one of the
summary in the
greatest.
name. I mean,
Yeah, I think one of the greatest names in the history of advertising is Craftsman. Craftsman Tools.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And we know that because it outlasted Sears, right? Lowe's bought Craftsman because the name is so good.
Right.
Like, who doesn't want to be a craftsman if they're working with hand tools?
Exactly.
It's like a really great name. This reminds me, like, the Hungry Man Dinners.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of like the 3-word rebellion that we've talked about on the show before. It's not quite a 3-word rebellion, but it's that catchy, quick.
It is.
You know exactly what it is. There's no question. It's kind of like Lean Cuisine would be a more update,
right
answer.
Yeah,
Hot
Hungry Man
Pocket.
Dinners wouldn't really be,
Still
apropos
around,
today.
though. I think they're still around.
Yeah. It's just not.
But yeah, now you want Lean Cuisine or you want Healthy Choice or whatever the new ones are.
Right.
Yeah. So,
but that's a good. I mean, to me, that's a good takeaway. Don't pick a name that's vague. That it could apply to almost anything. Names like, and they give some examples, but be specific on what your name, if you can, what your name, the benefit that your product implies or offers, if you can do that in the name. So
I will admit that I think it's harder today because you want the domain also.
Yep.
And it's so hard to find domains like that.
Yep.
You have to really kind of sit down and brainstorm and go through a lot of stuff to get that right. I think that's where something like having a brand and then your products are offshoots of that brand can help.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean the name, and you see that with the big brands, like and even some of the tech brands that are out, even though they have to misspell stuff, a lot of them just don't make any sense at all. But then some of them, like Amazon, it makes no sense. Like, why would you pick Amazon?
Yeah.
But when you've got, that's the difference between an unlimited budget where you can just brand something like that.
Yeah.
As opposed to having something that's clear and immediately understandable in the market.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where it takes a little more effort and coming up with a good name. So yeah, so that's a good one.
Don't overclaim. I like this. Especially in today's savvy. I mean, he was even talking about today's consumer is an intelligent, skeptical woman. If you exaggerate your claims, people, they'll turn you off. But that's for everyone today with the internet. You have to be really good in the homework that you've done and well researched, and you've got to make claims, but they can't be over exaggerated for a number of reasons. First of all, they'll get your ads shut down on Facebook.
Yeah.
And if you're using Facebook advertising, but then people are just, kind of jaded this day and age. So you've got to be realistic. I like this ad for the, even by today's standards, they use the example of the Mercedes-Benz 450. It says introducing a 13,500, which estimated cost for inflation today, I can only imagine what that would be. It's a sedan that promises the most remarkable driving experience of your life. And then it just introduces. So I like that because what it's saying is for, it's not just saying this is the most remarkable driving experience, but it's saying introducing and it gives the price, which kind of like levels. I mean, it starts to kind of, you get the sticker, you know exactly what the price is for what
Yeah.
you're getting. So it kind of helps to put that in a more realistic, because you feel like if it's not giving the price up front and it's telling you about the most remarkable experience in terms of driving, you're kind of thinking, okay, what's this going to cost me?
Yeah.
So they throw the price in and kind of offsets, your offer or what you're promising. So you're like, okay, let's check this out. It creates interest.
So a little bit of trivia here. This is some research I did for a product we were selling. I looked up the average price of a new car in 2021. Average price.
Average price.
All new cars. What do you think it is right now in August of 2021?
I'm going to say average price of a new vehicle. I'm going to say 40, somewhere between 35 and 40. I'm going to say 40,000.
You're correct. 40,000, I think is $40,800, which that
Yeah.
includes, I mean, when you think about that, includes like Civics and all those entry cars and then up. I mean, that's it's pretty stout. That's pretty,
it is.
I mean, 50 years ago, you could have got a Mercedes 450 SC for 13.5, apparently.
13.5. Wow.
Yeah. So
sounds amazing.
So yeah, I mean, I think the big takeaway here is be informative, but not informative for information's sake. Be informative in a way that makes people want to do business with you.
Yeah.
So you're kind of leading them down the road to work with you. They're like, oh, if they figured all this out, maybe I should just hire them. Like, obviously they know what they're doing. They've done all this research. They've got all these tests. That's what you want them to come away with. Like, there's going to be a few people who are do-it-yourselfers and they're just going to try to hack it, and some people will. Right. But for the most part, and it's fine if those people do, they would be terrible clients anyway, because they'd be telling you how to do it and all that. But for the most part, you just want to give people, it's a way to make people feel comfortable with you.
Yeah.
And confident that you know what you're doing.
Absolutely. Little takeaway on pricing before we wrap up on, I found this interesting. So, and I completely agree, but it says if your new brand is a Me Too product, in other words, if you're creating a product in the market space, another Me Too product that has, I mean, there's other competition. People will usually be, he says, there's a real difference, if you can, obviously separate it with some kind of differentiating, something that sets it apart from the other products. Obviously you can price it differently, but it says if your new brand is a Me Too product, never price it above the competition. But if your new brand has a real difference, people will usually be willing to pay more, and you've got to highlight the reason. The reason why they would pay more. Another reason for waiting until you have a product with difference. So if you're going to market a product like everything else out there, and you're like, I hear one of the things is like, that I'm hearing these days is like people are frustrated with microphone stands. Like there's like 1 million microphone stands out there for podcasters, and they all just suck. Right. I mean, absolutely. I mean, just like this one right here, this boom arm is not perfect by any means, because it comes off from time to time.
Yeah.
And over time it loosens up and it comes off the desk. But there's nothing out there that's perfect. Right. So it's like, if everything, it looks the same and you feel like it is the same, you're not going to get away with pricing it above everything else, unless you've got a solid reason why your mic boom or your mic stand or whatever is not going to lead to mic drops or mic fallovers, or
like
whatever, every problem that you deal with typically with mic stands, because they all suck. Ultimately, they all just suck. None of them work right.
So, yeah, they're noisy if you accidentally hit them.
Yep.
You know, like
exactly.
Yeah, if you had a sound deadening, you know, like if you tapped it, it didn't make a sound.
Right.
Like that one just did.
Yep.
And they they kind of only go in two directions. Like they're not.
That's right.
That's right. It's kind of up and down and back and forth. But yeah, they all kind of, you're right. They all kind of work basically the same.
No one has found the perfect mic stand yet. And I can honestly say that because I've tested out so many of them and they all just, they have problems. So
you need to have one of your manufacturing clients fix that.
I know.
Nice little product.
Like I could give them a list of things that I have problems with every mic stand that's ever made.
Yeah.
And I've got a whole list of them that need to go out to the garbage bin.
Yeah. Recycling center.
Yep. So, but anyway, it was good. Some good takeaways on, we'll post the links on some of these, some of these swipe files that we've just been featuring, how to create advertising that sells, and also how to create products or launch new products in your marketing. So these are fantastic.
Yeah, if you want to dive deeper and you don't have this book and you listen to this show, that's kind of weird that you don't have the Ogilvy on Advertising book.
You're nuts.
I don't know what you've been waiting for, but that would be a good book to buy on the old Amazon. It's been there for years.
There's other ads that we haven't even gotten to, like how to make your sales promotions more profitable. We could that might be a follow-up show that we do like next week or the week after.
I know one of their most famous one was how to create financial advertising that sells.
That'd be great.
I had that one framed in my office for a while. So
sounds like a follow-up show.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So, and you can insert any niche you want. How to create fitness advertising that sells.
Yep.
Like if you were selling fitness coaching, if you're listening, Alex Hormozy, like there you go. There's an ad. Yeah. There's a whole ad campaign for you. How to sell fitness advertising that sells. We should talk about his book too. I don't know if you've gotten it yet, but Alex Hormozy's $100 million offers. That'd be good to go through as well.
Yeah. Is that new?
There. It is pretty new. Yeah. It just came out in the last month, I guess.
Okay.
So it's really good.
To check that out.
Yep, it's good. Some stuff we've heard, but he has a couple new spins that I like. And he walks the talk. He's done that. He's built that $100 million business. So pretty rare air there. So maybe we'll dive into that at some point in the future.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, good stuff.
Well, to all of our listeners, thanks for watching. You can find us always on persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your podcast platforms. And if you go to the show page for this episode, we'll have links to these, some of these swipe files. I'm trying to think here. This would be episode, because I have to look and see. I think it's we're at 215, episode 215.
Wow.
So we'll have some of the links that you can access these Ogilvy ads. And I think we might have a kind of a follow-up part 2 to this, maybe next week or whenever we have another flight of persuasion. We can talk about some of these others, like your financial copy, and also making how to make your sales promotions more profitable.
Yeah.
Some really good takeaways from that. So
absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Well, thanks guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
See ya.